everybody shines given the right lighting.
This is Her Power Hustle with Michelle Talbot, where inspiration meets motivation to empower you for the perspiration of being a woman entrepreneur.
Welcome to Her Power Hustle. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I'm Michelle Talbot, your host, and we are having a great discussion today about building a business and the pieces of building a business with regard to market, defining your market, niching your market, broadening your market if that's something that should be done, and then all of the steps involved with creating a business that really works for you. Our guest, Kavit Herrera, is really well-versed in understanding how to build a business. He helps folks create businesses in a 6-week time frame, and then even goes beyond that to say within your first year, he guarantees $100,000 revenue. But before we get to that, I wanted to take a moment to just thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. If you have not already joined our Facebook group, please head over to herpowerhustle.com/Facebook. We would love to have you join us. We have sister power hustlers in there who are really sharing great information, getting good resources, connecting, networking. I see some really great connections already being formed and built. We'd love to have you again, herpowerhustle.com/Facebook. Just so you know that with this conversation with Kavit, toward the end of the conversation, I had a power surge here in South Florida, and so we had to reconnect twice. So you'll hear a little bit of a gap. I tried to edit as best as possible, but we do what we have to do in our businesses. It's a little disconnect, but the content is still there. So without further ado, let's get right into the conversation with Kavit, and I'll talk to you on the other side. Welcome back to Her Power Hustle. This is Michelle Talbot. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today. I think you will too once you hear who we're chatting with. We have Kavit Herrera, a former musician who is based in England, and he is a musician who didn't know how to get gigs to perform. So he taught himself marketing, and he ended up fully booked all the time. And then he said, I'm on to something, and started teaching other musicians and performers how to get booked and get gigs, and was able to build a 7-figure business from those trainings and teachings. He then branched out teaching his techniques to other types of entrepreneurs about marketing. And, as we deal with here, where we say inspiration plus motivation for the inevitable perspiration of being a woman entrepreneur, Kavit realized that implementation was really the key. And so he created a program that we're going to talk a bit about. And he works with beginning entrepreneurs, and he works with people who are a bit seasoned but maybe starting in a new market. And he helps them grow their businesses from scratch. And one of the things he guarantees is that each client who goes through his program will hit $100,000 revenue by the end of the first year in business. His company is called Insider Internet Success, and I love their philosophy, which is very simple. Have fun, do exceptional, meaningful work, pay attention to the details, treat people right, tell the truth, have a positive impact on the world around us, and give back and keep learning. Kavit, welcome to Her Power Hustle. How are you?
I am great, Michelle. That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
No problem. I'm very excited to chat with you. First of all, you're in the UK, so you're across the pond. How's the weather over there right now, sir?
Isn't that the most asked question anywhere around here? At any party you go to, it's all about the weather. At any barbecue you go to, it's all as if we ever have barbecue.
Right, exactly.
But surprisingly, it's really, really nice today.
Well, enjoy it. So we're going to have you bring us some sunshine by way of internet success. But talk to us first a bit about your musical career. Tell us, what type of musician were you, or are you? I mean, you never stopped being a musician, right?
Yeah, I still play. It's one of my greatest passions, and I'm a tabla player. A tabla is basically a North Indian drum. I don't know if you know it, Michelle, but you basically play it with two hands, and specifically the fingers. It's very different to the congos or the djembe or the bongos in which you play with the palms. You play this with the fingers, and it's dubbed possibly the most trickiest percussion instrument in the world. So I've been playing that for a long time now, over 18 years, since I started, my journey with that instrument. And about 12 years ago, I got to the point where I thought, I'm playing in the UK, I'm learning this in the UK, it's an Indian instrument, but I'm learning it in the Western world. and I listened to a lot of Western music. Surely there's a way I could perform this instrument and fuse it with, R&B or pop or jazz or blues or reggae even, and Latin music and so forth. And so I basically was under the impression that it would be really easy for me to go out there and find musicians and offer what I was doing as a unique thing that they could bring to their work. And it failed. I struggled a lot with how I would go out there and talk to these people. When I talked to them, they were not interested, because in the music world, you basically get paid for the time that you play. And if you were spending all your time doing free rehearsals and practices and stuff like that, then you're not getting paid. So it was very difficult for me to branch in, and for me, who was completely unknown, had no, backing from any other one to say that I'd done really well with them. It was really difficult to get myself out there performing. I kind of spoke to my family and said this is what I wanted to do, and although they were a little bit against it, and as Indian families go, you've got to, study, work hard, get a good career, settle in that career, and so forth. I wanted to do something that was radically different, which is to be a musician. And the short story is that after about 6 months of still not being able to get anywhere with it, meeting a few people, but nothing really coming of it, I never really had any gigs. I didn't make any money in that 6 months from, being an artist. I didn't get any invitations to record on CDs. I didn't really do that many big performances. I realized that I had to do something different. And I went online and I found this mentor in the music industry and I purchased a book from him. And in that book, I learned a little bit about marketing. And he was talking about this idea that you've got to be able to, with confidence, share exactly what value you bring to the world and how you do that and how it can really impact somebody's music. He also talked about how, I could go out there and reach out to other musicians and how exactly I should be doing that so I can get the right connections. So I'd learned a lot from that book, and what then kicked into my mind was that there's one really important thing that seems to be drilling through in this book is marketing. So I committed the next few months to reading everything I can about marketing, not music related, just marketing. I learned from people like Jay Abraham. I learned from social media books. I learned from going online on MySpace and playing around with MySpace. I learned all kinds of, traditional fundamental marketing as well, and really understood that actually what I have is not just music, it's also a product. And I've got to be able to sell that product. I've got to be able to formulate a method for me to allow others to realize how valuable what it is that I do is and how they can really want to benefit from it. So to cut the story short, within about 6 months after that, I started to get really booked up with gigs. I started to practice with a lot of musicians. I was saying things in the right way. I was attracting people to my website that I'd created for my music. People were listening to samples of the work that I had. You could basically download music on your laptop and then play along with it, and I was recording stuff on top of it as samples so people could see as if I was playing with somebody live and they were getting this value of what I was doing. So I did all of this stuff, and sooner or later it got to a point where for about 8 months I was gigging 3 or 4 times a week all over the country. Yeah, and I was playing, remember this is an Indian instrument with Western music, so it was harder than normal. And I toured in Europe, I toured in Africa a little bit, I toured in India. I got to the point where I was recording on a couple of CDs. I was being asked by others how I was doing what I was doing. I even started playing in concert with Paul McCartney. I played with Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. I got some massive opportunities as a result of the marketing that I'd studied, that I'd learned, and that I could hustle my way essentially to go out there and get what I wanted. And all of that really started from this idea of marketing. So, fast forward after that, I had a lot of people ask me how I was doing what I was doing. And a lot of these musicians wanted to know how I got these gigs, how I got to play with such musicians, how I got to record on CDs. And it was great. I felt really, like I was famous. I felt like I was popular, and people were asking me, what my secret was as such. And I didn't really have a secret apart from the fact that I learned marketing and I hustled. But I sat with these people and I talked to them about, here's how I got gigs, and here's how I promoted my music, and here's how I built this MySpace following, and the most important thing is growing your email list. And I talked about all these different things. And I realized that I was talking more than I was actually practicing and performing for myself, which is what I really wanted to do. So I had to go back and turn around from actually coaching and doing stuff like that to saying, I've got to find another way of sharing this information, which is really when I landed on the idea of an online business, ebooks. I had a friend who was writing ebooks for the health niche, as it were, and he was creating natural cures and how he was sharing in his books about diabetes and acne and all sorts of things. And he was selling really well, and he was making 5 figures a month just like that, by having these books. So I thought, well, I could do the same thing. I only know about the music marketing world. I only know about how to get gigs and how to build a financial career or financial independence out of a music career. But I could write all that stuff up. So in the months that followed, that's when I launched InsiderMusicBusiness.com. And I don't know if you want to go into that or if you want to jump around, but I'll let you ask how you want to go.
Sure. No, I think you've shared a lot of really meaty pieces that I want to pick apart a little bit. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Let's delve in. So the first thing I want to say is, number one, I went to undergrad with a lot of students who are of Indian descent, and they would have these amazing parties. And let me tell you, I'm going to put up some Bhangra and stuff on the show notes for today's show, because if you've not heard various types of Indian music where the drums are involved, it is just moving. You can't help but feel it. So, I really want people to experience that. And I don't know what happened. How come you didn't reach out to Jay-Z? Because he sure enough did Beware the Boys. And, that really introduced Indian music in the hip-hop world. So we need to hook you up with Jay-Z.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have the connection, I'm all game.
Yeah, right. I know. If I have the connection, I'm all good, too. But, I really want to talk about a minute being a creative, because a lot of our listeners, we're bloggers, we're writers, we're creatives, we're creating, and sometimes we don't think about the business behind creation and selling what we create.
I went into run this entire massive company called Insider Music Business, which we haven't touched upon yet, but what I learned, and essentially I fell into that as a business, right? And I'm coming back to your point in a second, but I fell into the idea that I could help musicians get more gigs, sell more music, grow their career, quit their day job ultimately, and do this full time because it's their passion. And that's all I knew, because that's how I fell into the business. And therefore by default, my audience became musicians. Mm-hmm. But musicians is probably the worst market to be in because they have no money to spend. So the products that I sold, and I had a huge suite of, information products, DVDs, CDs, coaching programs, etc. And my pricing was from like $7 all the way up till $197. And that's the most I could ever sell, at $197, because they just didn't have the money. Now, of course, you find the rare odd here and there that have a lot of money because they work in great careers otherwise from their music, but most of them don't actually have a lot of money. And when I think about it, a big part of why they don't have a lot of money, and this is the same for all creatives, which is what you asked, is because the creative person feels like, all I want to do is the creative work. I don't want to get involved in the business work. If I start doing the business side of things for my creative work loses its creativeness. And in my opinion, that's like the furthest from the truth that it could ever be, because you have a duty in this world, and this is what I believe. You have a duty in this world to share what you know. If you know something and you do something really well, whether it's knowledge or whether it's art or whether it's a book that you can write or it's creative work or it's blogging, as you mentioned, or even for you, you're podcasting here fantastically. If you have this amazing ability to do something and to reach out and to influence somebody else or to shape somebody else's thinking or to move them from a place where they are stuck to a place where they are free, and of course art does that, right? Then you have a duty to share it. And part of the sharing comes from the business side of things. If you do not put in the hours that is required to actually share that work, you're not going to be able to have your work reach a lot of people. And musicians are the kind of people that say, well, I really want to make great music. I want to spend all my time making great music, but I don't really want to do the business marketing side of stuff. But if you don't do that, then the time that you have to do with the marketing, the music is always going to be, the 2 hours after work before sleep or whatever, because you're always going to have a career. So in my opinion, if you really have to battle the creative side of things, then, and you're constantly wanting to do the creative side of things, but you're making ends meet and it's tough, then you have to spend time doing the marketing. Because the end result is always going to be this. The investment that you give in the marketing at the beginning is going to reward you by giving you more time for creativity for the rest of your life. Just because you build that amazing following. You build that group of people that are your raving fans that are going to go and share for you. So that small amount of 80% of work right now ultimately will become 20% of work later on.
Yes, we love the 80-20 Pareto principle. So, and I'm so glad you said that, because I totally agree with you that when you focus on the marketing and you have revenue and you have income because you've done that, you actually expand your capabilities. You expand your ability to share your art with the world, because then you can hire a VA. Then you can put people in place to do some of the tasks that you don't like to do while you continue to expand, create, share, and make the world a better place through your art, product, services. I completely agree with that. I think that is the right approach, and probably one of the reasons why you've been so successful. So let's talk a little bit about the success piece, because you said you can charge between, at that time, between $7 and $197. At what point did you make the shift where you began working with other entrepreneurs and expanding your pool of services and folks who you served?
Yeah, so I basically ran this music business from 2004 till about 2009, 5 years. I wish I could charge more. It's not that my mindset stopped me at that time. It's just that people weren't paying for it, so I had to drop the prices whenever I ran any tests. And I had this collection of about 24 different products that were selling. What I learned in that business, by the way, everything that I took from marketing from the music career, I applied it. But I also learned about automation and systems. I learned that I could connect all these different products up, and I could connect, people purchasing one thing to another thing. I created this massive journey that I could leave the business and it would still work. And I wanted to test that. I wanted to push myself and see whether that would work. So in 2009, I traveled about 8 months. I did like this massive overlanding tour in Africa from, South Africa all the way up to Nairobi, Kenya, 8 different countries in 6 weeks. I tented, I camped basically in a tent for 6 weeks. I traveled in a truck. It was the most amazing trip. There was no Wi-Fi anywhere. There was no internet connection.
Oh,
I didn't even have a smartphone at that time.
That's awesome.
And then I did the same kind of thing in India. I didn't camp, but I traveled like from the north to the south. And my grandparents are from India, but I'd never been to India apart from that. This was the second time. And it was a massive touring trip that I did for like 3 months. So I left the business for 6 months without much internet access. I contacted my assistant once in a while to see if everything was okay. The business made the exact same amount of money without my involvement. At the same time, I got bored about creating new products. I lost my creative edge because I thought that I'd created everything that I could ever create for the musician world, that I didn't really know what else to create apart from rehashing stuff, which I didn't want to do. That wasn't part of my, high quality service ethos or motto. So, about 2009, as a result of this business being quite successful, I started to speak at conferences. I started to speak at different seminars in the UK, and I was invited as a guest. And then I was invited to do consulting for various different businesses. They asked me how I was doing what I was doing, how I could help them automate their marketing, how they could basically put in the right systems to basically grow their business, faster using the web, how they could attract visitors to their websites, all sorts of stuff that I'd learned in the music career. I never had any degree or anything in that. In fact, my degree, because you talked about undergraduate, my undergrad was in genetics. And I studied that here in London, but it had nothing to do with what I was doing. So again, I'd like that to be proof that you don't have to have any skill or prerequisite to make your business work. So long as you have the passion, some knowledge, and a bit of hustle, I think anyone could do it. So I basically, in 2009, 2010, I started InsiderInternetSuccess.com, which is my current business. And I started to teach courses because I thought that's what people wanted and that's what I was good at because I created courses in the music business. So I created all these different courses and I was teaching entrepreneurs and businesses. So immediately I started charging $1,000 per course because I thought, well,
right.
They can afford it. Plus my value will give them a lot more importantly, my value will give them a lot more than $1,000. And it took a lot of time to put these courses together. I would take a year to test and rehash and create the best course that I could ever create on Facebook, for example. And a year later or 3 months later, Facebook changed their algorithms, which meant my entire year's worth of work was like completely wasted. And so I realized that people were buying this and I was making good money. I was selling off a webinar. I was making good money as you do. And I realized that although 100 people may have bought the course, for example, only about 5 to 10 of them were actually doing something with it. The other 90 to 95% of them do what you do with a book. You pick it up, you read it, maybe a few pages, life gets in the way, and you put it on the shelf for a day when life doesn't get in the way. And that day never comes. So I basically realized that I don't want to do these courses because as much as they're good for generating income for me, on a personal level, they weren't fulfilling. I was generating enough income from my music career. I was generating enough money from teaching other people, consulting at that time, that I didn't want to, consistently invest in these courses. So I changed my entire model. I said, well, what if instead of working with hundreds of people, I just took 4 people a month or 5 people a month, and they were really invested in this process, in their time and their energy and their money, everything, where they really wanted to build a really solid business that would be long lasting. It wouldn't be an overnight thing. It would take some time, but they would develop something that could be their legacy. It could be something that they are really passionate about doing, that they want to turn into a business that could be one that they have for the rest of their life and even pass on to their kids, but it consistently generates them income. It consistently gives them time, money, and lifestyle freedom so they can do whatever they want on their terms and not have to succumb to, the ways of the world as we see it. And that's when I launched Automated Business System. It's about 3 years ago now. Automated Business System is my service, which is basically what you asked about. And that's the whole process, is to go from anybody that really has an idea or an existing business, but generally an idea for a business. And then we help them refine it and structure it all the way to 12 months time when we launched, 6 weeks rather, when we launch it. But the whole process is 12 months. And by the end of 12 months, they've launched it, they're marketed it, they're growing it, they're making $100,000 at the end of the year. And we have, lots and lots of case studies that show that. And we can talk about any of that, as you wish, Michelle.
Mm-hmm. I think really there's so much here. I want to start with niching, because I think you niche down in the music industry by default because that was your area of expertise. Let's talk a little bit about your thoughts with regard to people when they're beginning their businesses to focus on a niche. And I can give you a real world example. One of our listeners writes for blogs for working on products for single moms. And recently a single dad read something that she'd written, and it moved him greatly. And other people then began saying, well, maybe you should expand your brand to single parents. But the thing is, she's at the very early stages of any branding. So what are your thoughts in an area like that, where someone, is niche, and then someone outside of their avatar, their targeted market, is impacted by something they've done? Should they expand right away, or should they remain focused and understand that there will be people who will come along who are not necessarily the target but will gain benefit from their work?
Yeah, well, that's a fantastic question, and more importantly, a great example. And I basically realized in my work that I was offering this service for people a month, and I realized that only 2% of people, 2 to 3% of people are very sure about their idea. 98% of people are still, I don't have an idea, or I have too many ideas, I don't know which one to go for, or I just don't know how to select which idea I should go for. And so what I did is I put together this thing called How to Find Your First Profitable Idea. And sat down and thought about all the people I've worked with, and I thought about how do they come up with their best ideas. And I realized that it was a 3-step process. It was generate all your ideas, analyze them from the point of view that, before you even go out to the market, and analyze them also from the point of view as the real world, and then test them in the real world. So go out there and say, well, run surveys, run interviews with people in that market and see what exactly they're saying about that idea. That way, anybody that doesn't have an idea can find an idea, can really validate it before they jump into business with the idea, and then, feel a lot more confident. Because when you have a good idea that will work, you have clarity. When you have clarity, you will have confidence. And when you have confidence, you'll have certainty. And the moment you have certainty in your business is the moment you know that you will succeed no matter what. Which is why a lot of people will say, well, how can you guarantee, 100K at the end of the year? And my guarantee is that you'll make 100K at the end of the year, but it's beyond that. It's more that you will have clarity, confidence, and certainty in your business that your business will do very well if you follow the plan that you've created. And for me, that's a more powerful takeaway than, I'll just make 100K.
Right.
Because that certainty will last you for the rest of your decade, as it were, or even your lifetime in that business. Because it's that certainty that gives you all the drive to make the correct decisions to take your business the right way. But anyway, back to your point. So I like the case study that you just presented. And if it was me, the first thing I would say, and the first thing that came up in my head when you talked about it, was that one single dad telling, this author or this writer that, she has fantastic work or she's writing some great things isn't enough. I think that you've got to gather a small growing community of these single dads, as it were, that is praising you. And one of the ways to do that is perhaps on your sidebar of the blog to have a little box that pops up or calls out a lead box maybe that says, I know this site is for single moms, but if you're a single dad, we'd love to cheer you on or something like that. Put in your email address if you're interested to get updates specifically for single dads. And you don't have to commit to building that side of the business just yet, but you can, from this process, get to know how many people are clicking the box, how many people are opting into the box, and then you get some real examples of, actually, over the last month, 50 people clicked and, 25, 30 people opted in. That means, I had 50 people, more than 50 dads on the site, but 50 clicks at least, and that's some good momentum that you're building there. But all of this stuff has to be measurable, and I would say that you should never launch a new vertical or a new area in your business until you have enough evidence or enough gathering of information where there is a specific group of people that want something. And so what I would say is if this lady is more comfortable writing for single moms or single parents than to just, single moms actually, than to just go ahead and do that. Build a really good quick portfolio of content, of branding, of relationships with other people doing that. And it'll immediately make it much more easier for her when she then launches a separate section for single parents because she'll run off the brand of single dads. She'll run off the brand of the single mums. So in my opinion, that's what I would advise a client right off the bat, just because, first of all, I already know there's a lot of people searching for single moms kind of stuff, and there's also a lot of people searching for single dads kind of stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised that there's a lot of single dads reading and trawling through the single mom stuff. Likewise, maybe even the other way. So some kind of little catch mechanism that basically gathers a small community of dads so that when you are ready to branch out properly, you do it full on as opposed to like half-heartedly. Because when you launch something half-heartedly and when you launch it full on, people can feel the difference. Not even just see the difference, they can feel the difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry.
And it's that feeling that, it's that feeling that absolutely convinces or makes someone move towards taking the action that you want them to take.
And I think this is great. Number one, I'm going to pat myself on the back because the advice you just gave is the advice I gave her. So I'm very excited to hear that you co-signed that. I'm excited about that because I think you're absolutely right, obviously, because you agree with me. And that's why you're here on the show. But seriously though, I really want to talk about implementation because you said the word hustle, and obviously hustle is a very important word around here. Hustle, implementation, to me, it's the same thing. It's the work. And that's where a lot of times passion doesn't take you all the way there, right? Because you just touched a bit on passion. Implementation is the sweat, the perspiration, the work. So talk to us about how you help those folks who you work with over the course of 12 months stay the course, as it were, to get to implementation, to get to success or that success point.
Wow. Yeah, so implementation is the most important thing. You don't build a business that is a simple business, yet a lucrative business without implementation. It also requires a lot of smart thinking because you've got to build a business. In my opinion, I try to build businesses where myself and my clients are free as quickly as possible, which means that they do a lot of work to begin with, but over time the amount of work they do decreases because they become more smarter because of the types of systems they're implementing. Mm-hmm. All of that requires implementation. It requires doing the work. So what I was going to say was that the way that I structure this program is that it's broken down into 3 stages. The first stage is called strategic discovery. It lasts about 7 to 10 days. In that time, I am working and consulting with my client to basically understand their idea and guide them to basically refine it and structure it so it can be the most profitable idea they have. Then we look at, things like funnels and sales processes and a vision and all these kind of things to really business model to basically, cement exactly what it is they want to do in a year. And we create a plan for how they're going to turn that idea into a 6-figure business within a year. The second stage is implementation itself. It's called implementation. It's 6 weeks. And in that time, I've assembled a team of people, a project manager, designer, a developer, a web guy, a graphics person, etc., a writer, sales copy, email copy, who basically come together to take the plan that we've devised, to build out this entire business for this client within 6 weeks. So within 6 weeks, we have a complete business built on the web, beautiful, that's working really well, and completely systemized, automated, etc. for our client. We do all of that implementation for them. Because a big reason why people don't go out there or get blocked even when they have fantastic ideas is implementation. Or they go around and shop with, first they have to find a designer, then they have to find a developer, then they have to find a copywriter and so forth. And they go around, and by the time they've found all these people, it's months down the line, they now are slowly starting to get burnt out. They spend a huge amount of money also, and they don't know how to tie everything together. What we do is we've hired the best of the best, in my opinion, and they all do the work that they need to do, and we tie it together here. So the client can see exactly what's going on throughout the whole process. And then after that, so that's 7 weeks, the first week and the 6th week, and then the third stage takes on the remainder 45 weeks that you get in 52 weeks. And that 45 weeks is called marketing and mentoring. And in that marketing and mentoring period, every 2 weeks, we get on the phone with our client for the entire 45 weeks to make sure they are following the marketing plan, they are learning the things that they need to learn, they are implementing what they need to implement. And if not, we help them guide their process to make sure they do what they need to do in the following 2 weeks. We have a training suite full of videos on how to do these different technical things they may need to do for marketing, like blogging or Facebook pages or anything like that, Twitter advertising, YouTube, etc. And then we have another webinar that runs on the alternating week, which is called AdLab. And AdLab is really just about fine-tuning your advertising campaigns. Specifically, we have an advertising guy who basically runs that, and he basically will look into our clients' accounts and tell them, well, here's how you can improve it, here's how you can, change it so that you're spending less money but getting more results, etc. So constantly, week after week, for 45 weeks, there is engagement, interaction, which is why we only take on such few people, so that we can give those people the results that they want. And ultimately, what I found in the last 2 years, in the last year and a half especially, is that all of our sales have come through our case studies. Mm-hmm. Because we've worked hard to build really good success stories. And that's how our entire business is based. Just building clients that have great stories and then sharing those stories. And celebrating not us, but celebrating the clients.
Right, exactly. So talk to us a bit about, with each of the 3 phases, can you name like one specific obstacle or challenge that you see most frequently across the 3 phases with the clients with whom you work?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. The first phase, strategic discovery, is really about figuring out your business model. The biggest challenge, or the biggest tip, as it were, would be to really hone in on who your audience is. Because as simple as it is, or as simple as it sounds, and as obvious and as constant as everyone talks about, find your audience, it is really one of the most important things. Because you can have a really bad business model, but if you find a really good audience, and you very clearly know who that is, and you're targeting those people, you will still sell. Mm-hmm. Because you are speaking directly to the people that want it, no matter how bad your business model is. But we want to create a best business model, and we want to find the best audience. So think about where they hang out, think about who they are, think about exactly what it is that they do. When we sit with our clients, we have a whole series of questions that we go through and ask them, because if we don't get them to the point where they are very clear and feel very confident about who they're targeting, then they are targeting a broader range or a bigger audience group, as it were. And it's a lot more difficult to target parents than it is to target single moms or single dads, which is why I'd said earlier about just going directly for single moms. Mm-hmm. So that would be one of them for that. For implementation, the biggest issue when it comes to implementation is, that I found anyway, is managing people and managing the deadlines. And we use Asana in our company as a project management tool. And we also have a project manager who is only responsible for taking everything that I talk with the client about in stage 1, translating it into a massive task list, and then assigning those tasks to our different team members, and then making sure they hit deadline. And then we have incentives and rewards in the right place for our team. But because what we're doing is we're promising a client that in 6 weeks we're going to have a complete business built up and on the web. No holes, no gaps, no mistakes, everything's tested. Although we say 6 weeks, inside our team, it's more like a 4-week deadline, so we can have 2 weeks for testing and refining. Right. But it's a 6-week process. And in order to actually build, and you'll know this, but if you want to build a real website with product, with sales copy, with emails, with Infusionsoft set up, all of it integrated, all of it automated, for social media, etc., blogging, it's going to take more than 6 weeks, but we do it in 6 weeks because we've refined the process over and over and over again. But it comes down to having good management of these people. So even if you were to do it on your own and you were to find your own people to do it, staying on top of them, making sure they're delivering, getting on the phone with them, not just dealing in email and Skype, but actually getting on the phone or Skype chat Skype phone as it were, but to talk with them, to really get into to them, to have this rapport with the people that are doing the work with you and for you, you'll find that you'll get better love and care that goes into the work, which produces better results. And then the third is marketing and mentoring. And in marketing mentoring, the biggest challenge that I have seen people create is not following their plan consistently. Marketing only works if you do things consistently. If you set a daily plan, do it daily. If you set a weekly plan, do it weekly. But if you skip a week or you skip a few weeks, you lose momentum in your marketing. And that momentum in your marketing can cost a huge amount, because it could be that you just miss a week, but you don't see the effects of that week until a few weeks later. If you miss 2 weeks and 3 weeks, for example, and maybe you're away on holiday and you forgot to program your blogs and program your social media and whatever it is, your emails, but you come back and you continue, you might not immediately feel the loss of activity and what that loss of activity has created. But a few weeks down the line, you start to feel the pinch, because you realize that because I just didn't have a plan at that time, I'm now like dry. I don't have the sales that I should have had or whatever. Yeah. So your marketing always has to be consistent. And so one of the things that we also talk about with our, clients, especially those that are coming towards the end of the 12 months, is hiring their first VA. Somebody who can start taking some of these approaches and doing it for them so that they can free themselves up of it and they can go do other cool things in their business.
And do you find that, well, two things. One, do you find that with the marketing there comes overwhelm? Because what I find in talking with business owners and other entrepreneurs is that it's like it just feels so overwhelming. Like you can never stop feeding the beast, as it were, of media and social media and touching people. And, I can't even remember the number. I think it takes 7 touches before someone makes a decision to buy. So to constantly sort of be out there, and as Gary Vaynerchuk would say, doing jabs and jabs and jabs and jabs before the right hook, to constantly, it feels like, do that. Is there a sense of overwhelm? Are there ways that you think that people can put strategies in place to not feel so overwhelmed, or that they're constantly marketing? Or is that just the nature of the beast, especially in your first year? Do you just suck it up and say, look, this is part of the game?
I think there's got to be ways to simplify, and my whole philosophy in business is about simplification. I think that less is more. I love what's his name? Is it Greg McKeown's book called Essentialism? And it's a book that I give to all my clients. I just didn't remember his name, but I give that book to my clients because I realize that everybody that wants to start a business has already had some experience or another in that it's difficult, or I've tried already, or I don't know where to begin, and all of that ends up being overwhelmed.
Right.
And really this business is, in my opinion, online business specifically, is a business where you shouldn't have any overwhelm whatsoever if you simplify everything. And when I say simplify, I mean that I don't want it to sound too little, but really when it comes to marketing, in my opinion, there are just 4 ways you can drive traffic. For example, this is an example. You can have social media traffic. You can have content marketing traffic, which is things like blogging, reaching out, podcasts, etc. You can have partnership promotions, which is, getting on other people's podcasts or guest blogging or doing affiliate webinars or whatever. And the fourth one, so social media, content marketing, partnership promotions, and paid advertising is the fourth one. So you've got all these 4 different ways, and really every other type of advertising and marketing you can think of online falls into these 4 categories. So all I say to my clients when I start and when we draw up a marketing plan, after we've implemented their business, we draw up a marketing plan for them and with them. And what we say is, let's just pick one area out of each of these 4 and do them really well. And once we get them done really well, and once you're doing it really well and you can see that it's producing results, and you've got an assistant that you can pass some of these things to, then let's go ahead and pick a second one in each of these areas. And that's all it has to be. In my opinion, I don't think that businesses or people, especially solo entrepreneurs, people starting out, need to go ahead and add all the different legs to the table just immediately. Just 4 legs is enough to hold the table up. You don't need 8 legs, as it were.
I just heard a collective sigh of relief from the listeners just now through my ears. Did you hear it? Did you feel it, Kavit?
Absolutely.
Thank you. You have freed some souls. So as our time is winding down together, can you just you've given so much great information, but do you have sort of a last little platinum nugget? We don't give golden nuggets around here. We have platinum nuggets. A last platinum nugget for our listeners who are now thinking, okay, Kavit has told me I need system, strategy, implementation. How do I tie this all together to take the first step to move toward building a business that I love?
I'm going to share 3 if that's okay.
That's perfectly great. More is always better.
I love this book called Double Double by Cameron Herold. And in that book, he talks about this exercise called the painted picture. And the painted picture is this idea of a 3-year vision, but you write it as if you've already experienced everything. So you're sitting there and you're writing that in 3 years. So you're writing in 3 years' time. So it's 2015 right now. 2018. I am the best-selling author of a book that's on the New York Times list. I am the owner of this business. I have this house. I have this car. I have whatever. I have this business. I am, donating X amount of money. So one of the things that I was going to say was this thing called Painted Picture, and it comes from a book called Double Double by Cameron Herold. And Painted Picture is this exercise where essentially what you do is you sit down and you write your vision for 3 years, only for 3 years, because essentially he says that your mind can only reach up to that point. Beyond that, it's very difficult you can write massive goals, but you don't really know where they are. But 3 years, and you write it as if it's the present moment. So in 2018, I would be writing, for example, that I am the author of 3 best-selling books on the New York Times list, or whatever it is that you want to achieve for your life and your business. But it's one of the exercises we give to our clients in the automated business system. But I wanted you to do this right now. I think that if you do it right now, you'll be inspired and motivated yourself to realize that you can achieve way more than you actually think you can achieve. And that will give you all the momentum and impetus you need to go ahead and drive yourself forward. So do that exercise. It's called Painted Picture. And if you want to find out more, then I suggest you check out that book, Double Double by Cameron Herold. And one of the other things I wanted to talk about was this thing called Perfect Day. And Natalie Sisson has this exercise called Perfect Day. It's another one of the exercises that I really recommend. And what you do is you sit down and you think about what your perfect day would look like. At the end of the day, we get into business for ourselves. We get into businesses so that we can have our business give us a life as opposed to the business take away a life. And if you're not very careful, what can happen and what happens with most people that get into business is they end up having a job. You want to run a business, which is why we talk about systems and automation, that delivers freedom, literally hands you on a plate time, money, and lifestyle freedom. Of course, it doesn't happen overnight, but it takes a bit of get. And the perfect day exercise asks you to do that. You sit down and you write what your perfect day would look like. Most people would say stuff like, I'd get up whenever I want. I'd make coffee. I'd read a book. I'd go to the gym. But you can do that right now. So I want to encourage you to think a little bit more further. Like, what exactly would you love your perfect day to be like? Maybe move to another state where you can be by the beach. Wake up, go for a run in the morning. Come back and make this beautiful juice and breakfast for yourself. Then sit across the ocean, looking at the ocean, maybe doing a bit of work on your laptop. What exactly does your perfect day look like? From start to finish, sit down and write the entire thing out, and you'll start to see opportunities for how this could materialize slowly and surely start to appear in your life. And that's one of the most beautiful things. When I did that exercise a little while ago now, when I started doing that exercise, it was a while back, but when I started doing that exercise, what I realized was slowly and surely all these opportunities started to appear for me. And it was really amazing because at that time, one of the key things that I wanted was to be able to travel and work anywhere I wanted to be able to work with my laptop, but also have the ability to see a lot of the world. And now, 4 or 5 years later, I've traveled a huge amount. I'm still able to, and I go to all sorts of places and I take my laptop and once in a while I'll work. I become too lazy nowadays when I travel, so I don't work. But what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to inspire you with more than anything else is that when you actually sit down to commit, to think beyond the limits of your comfort zone and to think beyond your box, as it were, you'll start to see so many amazing things appear. Mm-hmm. So I really encourage you to do that. Mm-hmm. And then the third and final thing, which is that everybody shines given the right lighting. Everybody shines given the right lighting. And you have within your own power the ability to give yourself delighting and to give others delighting. Because we live in a world with so many opportunities these days that not only can you inspire yourself, but you can inspire others. And more than anything, I believe that it's a massive duty of my own and the people that I work with to do that for the people that they surround themselves with. Because when we take on this duty, we become beacons. And when we become beacons, we shine bright no matter where we are, and a lot of people get inspired from that. And we offer that lighting to a lot of people. So I wanted to end on that third note.
That's beautiful, Kavit. That is wonderful. I think that's awesome, and I know that added a lot of value for our listeners. So I just have one final question for you, and as a musician, this is probably going to be easy for you. What is your favorite song or movie about love or romance? So love or romantic love?
That's a really difficult one when it comes to song, for sure.
To pick a favorite, right?
And now time for today's Power Boost from Kwanda Lamb of Do It Anyway.
Hey there to my single moms. I want to encourage you tonight. Whatever it is, whatever's going on, wherever lack there is, God has it. Put it in his hands, say your prayers, and rest well. Remember it. You got this. Do it anyway.
Thanks, Kwanda. And now back to our conversation with Kavit.
A really difficult one when it comes to song, for sure.
To pick a favorite, right?
Yeah. I recently, and this is not song or movie, I seem to keep dodging your questions and doing something else. But when it comes to the book, I recently just finished a book called The 40 Rules of Love. And it's by Elif Shafak or something like that. So she's a Turkish novelist, but she's weaved the truth about Rumi and Rumi's soulmate Shams of Tabriz into this book, and then describes 40 rules of love, essentially. And it is the most amazing book on this kind of topic that I've read. And I'd really recommend everybody who likes reading novels or a little bit of, spiritual history, as it were, and anything on that idea, true romance, as it were, true soulmate love, as it were. It's a fantastic book, really, really fantastic book. I actually hope they make a movie out of it, which is why I'm referencing it here.
Well, the more you say that, then hopefully they will. Okay, that sounds great. Well, then our final parting words are, where can folks find you? Where can they really continue this conversation and continue their education that started with our call today?
Yeah, thanks. One of the best ways to continue your education, no matter what it is to find success stories and to really study those success stories and then to try and emulate them or to try and find what works from them. And what we've done is we've found our best students and some of our mediocre students, as they were, because of the amount of income they've earned or how they've worked. And we've interviewed all of them about the entire process and exactly what they did to actually build on their own the six-figure business. And we put together a little book called the case study book, as it were, discover how these people have built 100K businesses. And you can get that for free as a download at insiderinternetsuccess.com. That's INSIDER, insiderinternetsuccess.com. And there's a large button there where you can click and download the case studies and read them. And hopefully you'll get inspired. And if you have any questions or want to find me, or you can drop me an email from the email on the website, or you can find me on Twitter at Kavit Haria.
Thank you so much. It was so great speaking with you, Kavit, and we look forward to much more success in your life. And thank you again for joining us on Her Power Hustle.
Pleasure. It's been a fantastic call. Enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you. We did as well. Take care.
I hope you got a lot of benefit out of that conversation with Kavit. I would love to hear from you. The show notes for today's show are located at herpowerhustle.com/100K. Let's go there. So it's herpowerhustle.com/100K. As I mentioned earlier, today's Power Boost was brought to us by Kwanda Lamb. If you are a woman-owned business and you would like to have your business featured on Her Power Hustle podcast, please feel free to fill out the form located on the show notes page. Again, today's show notes are herpowerhustle.com/100K, or you can send me a message at Michelle@herpowerhustle. Tell me a little bit about your business and provide a website link. We would love to have you featured. This is something that I do for free. It is not a paid ad. It is something that is done for free. And to that, I would further say that Kewanda didn't even know that I was going to feature her today. She has been a long time listener of the Her Power Hustle podcast and is a very active member of our Sister Power Hustler community. And she put out her first video last night, which was the audio that you heard. And I wanted to encourage her and encourage you. For many of us who have been single moms, Kewanda is doing great work. So I wanted to feature her as a little give back to her, which she didn't even know about. She is putting together a new book, and you can get a free chapter on the website at herpowerhustle.com/100K. We have a link to her site. You can find out more about her and her movement to help single moms. Her Power Hustle is here for you, the woman entrepreneur, in any way that we can help. Please do reach out. We mean what we say. We are about the hustle, we are about the power, and we are about her, aka you. This is episode 17 of the Her Power Hustle podcast, and you can find the show notes at herpowerhustle.com/100K. I look forward to having you join us on the next edition, and until then, I will speak with you soon. Take care. Her hustle is real.
Thanks for tuning in to the Her Power Hustle podcast, produced and hosted by Michelle Talbot, with voiceover talent by Mr. Matt Young.